So please can I welcome back Tanuvasa, Sefita and Olivia to share the reflections from the sending countries.
Apologies about that. So actually we are well-prepared people. That's not our fault. So anyways, just to connect to the last bit of the presentation from the employers, and it's really good to see the two of our employees from South Island and two of South Island liaison officers are up here, so it's well represented, our South Island. So the first one is basically the pastoral care. As the employer was also alluded to some of the areas that where the commonality is with our discussion yesterday. But us sending countries, we found that pastoral care, there's unclear pastoral care roles, responsibilities, and worker support. And that is a lack of clarity, roles, responsibilities from the labor sending units to the workers, and while the involvement of our High Commissioner or government and other stakeholders. Second part is the pastoral care should be recognized as shared responsibility across the entire work cycle, from recruitment until pre-departure through employment in New Zealand and return with the integration. The third one is cultural sensitivity and language barriers need to be embedded within pastoral care with workers' welfare issues communicated by individuals who understand workers' language and culture. And then we have workers require clearer information on medical insurance, including coverage, entitlement, and how to assess services. And lastly, more coordinated support is needed to vulnerable workers, including those who have become disconnected from employer. We have a term that we normally use in our CLO's meeting, and lost soul, with a stronger role of the government, which is High Commissioner here in New Zealand, the CLOs, and also the LSU and the employers. So the proposed action is, the first one is strengthening regional coordination by expanding the Whanau Moana Nui, that's not Moana, Whanau Moana Nui Joint Committee to include all participating Pacific countries and establishing terms of reference to coordinate regional actions on pastoral care. So when expanding the TOR or terms of reference, it has to clarify and standardize the pastoral care roles, responsibility, rights, and minimum service standard across the worker's life cycle, as well as define the respective role of employers, LSU, the government, and also stakeholders. Embedded cultural, appropriate, and language-sensitive approaches to workers' welfare, as well as improving communications on medical insurance and establish coordination support mechanisms for vulnerable workers, including lost soul.
Karen, I'm going to ask you a favor, if you don't mind. It's okay. I can't read from here, but I can stand there with a mic and read off the board. Is that okay? I brought the wrong pair of glasses.
Okay, you can step behind me and then you say it.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Everybody hear me? Thank you. It was good to actually hear from Professor Dr. Bedford and, of course, Blair, and all the things that we've had to deal with insofar as the availability of work since COVID and all the attendant issues that we had to deal with. So this is sort of bringing it down just to a few lines so that it reminds us what we are dealing with and help us try and understand what we're going into. Long-term sustainability of the scheme depends entirely mutually beneficial for both employers, Pacific workers. Nothing new in there. That's what we've been doing all along. But while employers need a reliable and productive workforce, workers must receive sufficient work and earnings to justify the cost of participating. One of the things that we were concerned about was that under the scheme, you can have a 3-month contract where if you work it to the rule and if you're going to be employing people the minimum hours of 30, the worker will earn $8,600, I think it is, at the end of 3 months. And after costs have been taken, it varies, he or she would be lucky to take home about a quarter of what has been earned. I guess what we're saying is that we know that not every worker in 3 months is working to the minimum hours, but should it happen, that would be the case. And the question we often ask, if we all know that that's unsustainable, why commit ourselves to writing as part of policy? And I think what Blair has signaled to us and what we've seen all along, that there are lessons to be learned that we're going to adapt. The guarantee sufficient work is part of what it is that we're looking for. We know that there's a lot of work available and can be made more available if we're prepared to continue to look. And I'm hoping that we're not going to have a closed shop of RSE employers who may have made the scheme so expensive that we can't expand the work that's available to us. Strengthen monitoring. Introduce the early warning mechanism to identify workers experience prolonged periods of low or no work. We're particularly concerned here where we have workers from the Melanesian groups who are here for 9 months. They appear to be dealing with this much more than those of us who are closer to home. To review the contract arrangements, in other words, we're exploring joint ATRs or longer contract periods, particularly for countries with higher travel costs to improve return for workers. We have in mind Timor-Leste and Papua New Guinea in this, of course. Engaging employers to better understand the factors contributing to declining work availability and increasing worker costs, and identify the practical solutions to maintain the mutual benefits of the scheme. As CLOs, we're often a little distant from this, but from time to time, we wouldn't mind talking to you about what your experience has been so that we can be better prepared for the next season. It could be the number of workers you have. It could be the region where you're operating. But we did ask whether we could probably have data on agricultural work that's available outside of the RSE employment groups, because that could well be a solution to the shortage of work should that be the case. So finally, the review of the reserve roles, consider whether reserve roles should be transferred to the RSE scheme, where appropriate to increase the work opportunities and support more consistent employment for RSE workers. This speaks to where MSD is involved. And we know that, I'll give you an example, that fork hoist drivers is always a bit of a fight as to whether it should be an RSE job or not. We know that at the height of the season, it certainly belongs to us. When season is short, we have to struggle to buy that back as well. So that's our piece from the availability of work and see where we can go from here. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you, thank you. I think, yes, following in Dr. Bedford's steps, kami making presentation niya, Lupislama, from Wantemorum Pislama Language Week. Good afternoon, good fanui, lui miol kita. I won't do it in Bislama, I'll do it in English. But so I was tasked with us three close were tasked with a priority for going into this, and I received the strengthening LSU employer relationship with a focus on reintegration. So yes, the partnership between the employers and the LSU is fundamental. It was good, like yesterday when we came back together, hearing from the employers that this is also an area that they want to focus on. I came into this really, I guess, to be transparent, like looking out in the audience right now, I know a small percentage of you, and it makes me realize that we actually work in our little country silos. So I'm only dealing with people who deal with Vanuatu. So this really came from the perspective of Vanuatu. But you go to the key priorities? We acknowledge that establishing regular employer engagement, I think reflecting on what the employers had to say, maybe there is a breakdown in, not a breakdown in communication, but not a timely communication as to what employers would expect. From Vanuatu, we would just like to, well, it's the Pacific nature, please be patient. Some of the countries really struggle with some connectivity issues. But I think coming together like the employers in the sending countries, there's a lot of, we can actually work on solutions to help tackle those connectivity and that communication issue. Improve information sharing. So something from LSUs that they would really appreciate is end of season reports, just that sharing of how the season went, whether there was like behavioral issues, the key, like the challenges and also the success stories, just having that sharing of communication. It helps also the LSU I think maybe some employers might feel like the information is irrelevant, but when we are undertaking pre-departure briefings or engaging with employers, having that knowledge actually does help passing it on to the workers and everyone else who can just understand the whole ecosystem of RSE. And then strengthening reintegration. So they were like the three key areas underneath that umbrella of strengthening relationships was communication, sharing of data, and reintegration. For the reintegration, we encourage really employers, if you're able to, like employers from Vanuatu, that to make that journey, come to Vanuatu and see what's happening. Even if you recruit through agents, we encourage you that when you're in Vila to pop by the office and come meet with our team. I'm very fortunate that a colleague of mine, Maria Noel, has traveled from Vanuatu. She heads the RSE team back home, so please in the next 2 days come and make yourself acquainted with her. But yeah, coming back to strengthening the relationship, sorry, this presentation was just handed to me, so I'm trying to make the best with it. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you.